Hey everybody, it's your old pal Tom here on the Tom Gulley Show. Hey, listen, let me tell you about Humphrey Bogart. Selected by the American Film Institute as the greatest male star of classic American cinema, old school, cool, bogey, tough guy in a bunch of classic films. And his background story is really interesting. It's not what you'd think. You'd think maybe he was, kind of, well, I'll just leave it at that. It's not what you'd think. Sorry, I'm a little distracted. Because if you remember a while back, and this, by the way, is one of the more popular episodes we've done, I did a show on a television program called A Man Called Shenandoah. And it's been getting regular views ever since I did it. It's a great, great, great program. And I believe during it I showed that I have the entire series and been quite a fan of it for a long time. And, I did a show on it. Well, just like yesterday, some hunyuk, I'm not going to mention the guy's name or anything, he gets into my comments section and he says, you need to take a closer look at the ratings. Man Called Shenandoah was one of the top 5 shows of ABC at the time. I'm like, I don't think that's accurate. In fact, I'm almost positive that's not accurate. And I looked it up, and in fact, it was not accurate. And believe me, you want to get on my bad side, start a sentence with "you need to." After I've done a show on something and you've done nothing but listen to my show. You need to. No, I don't think I do need to. And I think I already did. And so, Stugats, you know what I mean? So I point this out to him, and I point him out to him. Well, it was up against the Andy Griffith Show, the number 6 show on television. It was ranked number 37, and so then he's like, well, there was just other reasons than the ratings. Dumbass, you're the one that brought up the ratings. You, not I, said you need to look into the ratings with your little high and mighty attitude. So stick it. So I was distracted this morning, having to straighten that guy out. Don't come on to my YouTube page and start with the you need tos. Like you're the master of information that I haven't covered already. Good gravy. But that's what happens when you have a show. You get a lot of people that have inflated their own knowledge and their own this and their own that. Incidentally, if he'd had an actual point, because then he defaulted to, well, there's a lot of other reasons than ratings that. And I'm like, I already told you that. You're the one that brought up ratings. I didn't bring it up. You did. Anyway. This is our cold open. We do it for our audio podcast listeners. By the way, we got a great show planned for you today on Humphrey Bogart. It's going to be a long one, probably. And we want our audio podcast people to know that, yes, there's an audio podcast coming down the pike. But in the meantime, I have to play some songs that kind of allow people to stream into our live interactive YouTube program, which I'm going to do in a second. And then we'll do a deep dive into the man, the myth, and the media legend, and just the guy's guy. Bogey was a dude. He was just, Anyway, here's a couple tunes about the show. And then, let me tell you about Humphrey Bogart. Tom Gulley.
when the night comes alive, you can feel me by your side.
Frequency, rolling through you, rolling through me. Frequency,
Turn it up and set it free. Turn it up and set it free.
it's Tom Gulley. It's Tom Gulley.
Ride that sound, don't come down.
Let it spin you all around.
Let it spin you
Frequency, rolling through you, rolling through me.
Hey everybody, what's going on? What's hot? What's hip? What's happening? What is shaking? Let me tell you about Humphrey Bogart, or as I like to call him, Bogey. That's right. Probably the biggest male star of classic Hollywood, and just a guy's guy, and a lot of famous movies. And we're going to get into his whole backstory. There's a lot of stuff you didn't know about him. And famous lines, so many famous. Here's looking at you, kid, and just tons of really great stuff. And married to Lauren Bacall, and his earlier marriages are kind of crazy, a little bit crazy. And his upbringing also a little bit not crazy, but not what you'd think. And we'll cover all of that. And hopefully, I won't have some hunyuck come in here and tell me I'm wrong about things that they're wrong about and then be all high and mighty. And after I tell them they're wrong 90 times and prove it, they go, let's just agree to disagree. What do you mean disagree? You brought up all the crap, and I proved to you that you were wrong, and you even admitted it. That's the thing about people of a certain age. And I got a lot of thoughts about certain things with the demise of CBS News Radio last night, the very final broadcast, but there's this thing that it's this participation trophy generation that, has been told that they're wonderful and they're perfect and, oh my God, you're a genius. And they'll say things because they have this inflated, undeserved ego, right? And this self-image that's just been propped up by parents and teachers. And so they'll say, well, this was blah, blah, blah. It was one of the top 5. No, actually it wasn't. Here's the proof. Well, whatever. I mean, it was one of the top one. Hey, dummy. You brought it up. You said the thing. And when you're wrong, you don't get to just go, well, whatever. You say, oh, I was wrong. Then we all move on. But when you go, well, but I was still kind of right, and you continue on in the depths of your ignorance, but see, that's okay now. The world is, well, you're just being picky. No, I'm holding you accountable for the actual things you said. Oh, you're just being pedantic. No, words have meanings, and if you can't use them, it's not my fault. And if you're just dumb, it's not my fault. You came to me stupid. I didn't make you that way. Don't say stupid things. Don't say wrong things if you don't want to be held accountable for them. I'm sorry, I got a little off track there. But that's just the way it is, I guess. Anymore. That's just the way it's going to be. The word, you know what the word literally means, right? It means actually. It means definitively, literally. It's, and people have started to, I literally could have jumped to the moon. No, you literally could not have done that. When you say literally, it means you could have, that thing could have happened or did happen. I mean, I literally stayed up all night. Okay, that could literally happen. If you did that, then you literally did. My car literally used 4 quarts of oil. Did it use 4 quarts of oil? Yes, it did. Then it literally did. People have gotten so used to using literally as a descriptive, I literally could have jumped to the moon. No, you couldn't have. But people have used it incorrectly for so long that one of the major dictionaries now includes the incorrect usage of that word as a definition. So now in that dictionary, there's literally no word that means literally. Anyway. Hey, do me a favor, like, share, subscribe, retweet, notification bell, all the absolutely free things that you can do that help us out with the algorithm, the almighty, all-powerful, all-knowing algorithm, which, by the way, has not been created to serve you or humanity. Just like SEO was not created, it's not a language for humans. Humans don't speak the way SEO requires you to speak. No. Load every term that you would use in possibly, not definitely, possibly searching for this particular piece of content. Load it all up in the first 140 characters. Humphrey Bogart, old Hollywood, movie star, classic cinema. I mean, you want Maltese? People don't talk that way. People don't get engaged that way. That's what the algorithm wants. That's what the algorithm demands. Forget how effective it is. Forget how much people, humans, blood and bone corporeal creatures, forget how much they like it. That's the last consideration. Oh, who cares about that? Why should we be doing things that appeal to humans or that benefit humans? Let's serve this computer algorithm. Anyway, if you could like and share and retweet and all that stuff, I'd appreciate it. The SEO and the algorithm, all that, it won't appreciate it at all. It doesn't care. I care. I appreciate you. And by the way, if you're watching us live, we do have super chats, and we got memberships and gifted memberships. Those help the show out quite a bit too, and I do appreciate those. And then also, if you look into our YouTube description, if you're not even watching live, and we've got the PayPal there, where you give the most, I get the most. We cut the middleman out completely. And then you can also go to the TomGulleyShow.com, where you will find our merchandise store. And there is awesome stuff there. That I won't deny you one bit. And the algorithm created none of it. All created by human beings. Yeah. And I only mark it up $2 or $3 because I want you to get something with my logo on it. That's good advertising. It is. Hey, let's go to our live interactive YouTube chat room. Johnny Books is here with us. Haven't seen Johnny in a while. Says, the open road, dog laid out in the back, and Tom Gulley on the speakers the way God intended. Good afternoon, Mr. Gulley and my fellow Gulley heads. Hello, Johnny. Good to see you, Johnny. I like your Jack Kerouac description of listening to this program. Tim Jenkinson's here. Sadly, the internet is full of idiots. It is full of idiots. Well, the world in general is full of. There are far less smart people than stupid people. So if you want to do something that gets big numbers with the algorithm and with the internet in general, well, then appeal to the stupid people. That's what you need to do. Would you like to see me light a fart? That would get big numbers. Tim Jenkinson says, I think the weather could send Spurs down. It's going to be 32 degrees Celsius tomorrow, which I think in real temperature is about 90 degrees, isn't it, or something like that? I don't know. Let me see here. I'll tell you what it is right now. I know negative 40 is the same in Fahrenheit and in Celsius. I don't know what it is in real temperature. Tim Jenkins just said maybe lick a battery. Yeah, I should lick a battery. That'll bring him in here. Or I'll do one of those hot pepper challenges or something. Oh, it's 89.6 degrees. Didn't I say it was around 90? Damn, I'm good. I don't care what it's going to be in London for the Palace game. Because we already won the whole shebang. And we better rest our guys because next Saturday, by the way, we will have some kind of birthday extravaganza. We have one every year. For me next week on Saturday, a week from today, is my birthday. And it's also the day that Arsenal plays PSG, Paris Saint-Germain, in the Champions League final for the championship of the Europe. I think it's, I just think it. I know they've got this World Club Cup, World Club Cup, whatever it is. I know they have one now, but I still think the Champions League is the title for the best club team in the world. I know there's people that, will say, oh, that doesn't include South America, North America. But yeah, but those teams aren't as good. Arsenal will win, I think, says Tim Jenkinson. The further one strays from the Tom Gulley Show, the dumber the internet gets. Fact, says Johnny Books. Tim Jenkinson says he thinks Arsenal will win. I think it's just going to be a great game because Arsenal has that rock-solid defense. And Paris Saint-Germain is such a great attacking team. It's just going to be a classic clash, the likes of which I don't think we've seen in a while. I think we normally have teams that try to play free-flowing back and forth, and this one is quite the opposite, so we'll see. We shall see. But be here next Saturday for all the thrills and action. I don't know what time the game starts. The show might be delayed on Saturday for that reason. But I'm doing a lot of kvetching on today's show. And a lot of it's because this jerk, if he had started off with, I have an opinion about this or that, or I was just thinking that, no problem. But when you started off with, you need to look closer at the ratings. Hey, dumbass. I went to the 1965-66 TV ratings. I looked at the Monday night lineup. I looked at the 9 p.m. time slot. I looked at all of that. And then you come off with, it was a top 5 ABC show. No, it was not. And there's a lot of other, and then I point out there's a lot of other different reasons other than ratings that the shows get canceled. One of which is, how close are you to your competition? You don't got to get great ratings if you're not losing to the other two networks by very much. If they also have two stinkers and you're not far off, we'll keep you in there. You got a fighting chance. When you're number 37 and you're up against number 6, bye-bye. All right, sorry. I bet you guys would like to learn about bogey, wouldn't you? Why don't we talk a little bit about bogey, shall we? Let me tell you about Humphrey Bogart. This fella right here, Humphrey DeForest Bogart. Oh, yes, fancy. Another fancy thing about him is he was born on Christmas Day, 1899. So he was actually born before the 1900s and that. Just barely, about a week. But anyway, nickname Bogey, just a cultural icon. I mean, look at the guy, right? And as I mentioned, the American Film Institute selected him as the greatest male star of classic American cinema. So he was born on Christmas Day there in Manhattan, New York City. And he was born the oldest child of Belmont DeForest Bogart. What do you think about that name? The Bogarts, man, they had some names, didn't they? They weren't messing around in the name department. And Maud Humphrey, which is where he gets his first name, right? Now, his dad was an only child and not a very happy marriage, right? But his mother was a wealthy heiress. So his dad's side of the family comes from lots of money. His dad was an innkeeper. He kept an inn, is what he did. And the name Bogart is from the Dutch or whatever, and who cares? And there's a dispute about the date of his birth. Warner Brothers publicity department had changed it to January 23rd because he played a lot of villains early on in his career. And their thought was, well, you can't be a villain if you're born on Christmas Day, which, as we all know, is a load of crap. I've known plenty of jerks that were born. Anyway, so a lot of times you'll see his birthday is January 23rd. Don't believe it. He always celebrated his birthday on the 25th, and that's what it says on his marriage license. As a matter of fact, Lauren Bacall wrote in her autobiography that they celebrated his birthday. Lauren Bacall is who he married later, Bogey and Bacall in life. And she said they always celebrated his birthday on Christmas Day, and he joked about getting cheated out of gifts every year, like a lot of people do that were born around Christmas. So, yeah. And the census and everything. I don't know why we're talking so much about his birthday. It's not that big of a deal. He was born on Christmas. So Belmont, Bogart's father, I mean, when you see his movies and when you hear him talk, and he's such a regular guy, right? That you think, I mean, actually, after all, the character he played in African Queen, Charlie, man, he was just, hey, whatever you say. I mean, just a regular guy. But his dad was a cardiopulmonary surgeon. And I don't know about you, but I don't get that vibe from Bogart, right? I don't get that cardiopulmonary surgeon son vibe from him, right? So his dad is a freaking surgeon. His mother of all people, this is just amazing. His mother, Maud, right? She was a commercial illustrator, and she wasn't just like any commercial illustrator. And please keep in mind, illustration back then for magazines and newspapers and stuff was way cheaper than having photography done, and way easier to reproduce in print. So illustration was a big thing, especially if you were good at it. She trained in New York and in France, okay? And she didn't just train with anybody, all right? She trained with James Whistler. You've ever seen, and I was going to put it in here, but I just didn't, the famous painting Whistler's Mother? I think the real title is An Abstraction in Black and White or something like that. Whistler's Mother, the guy who painted Whistler's Mother, yeah, she trained with him. She became actually the art director of the fashion magazine, The Delineator. And as you can see, sorry, audio podcast listeners, there's a lot of illustration going on over there, right? I mean, a lot. Now, and by the way, his mother, for the time, was what they called a suffragette. She was someone who very much believed in women's rights, women's right to vote, equal rights for women. So she was kind of a radical, right? Now, there's a myth that you will hear once in a while, or you used to hear it all the time, that the baby that was used on the advertising and the labels for the packages of Gerber's baby food, which maybe some of you have got children and you probably know about Gerber's baby food. It's a big baby food brand. There's a myth that was Humphrey Bogart and that it was from a contest or something. That's absolutely untrue, but there is a truth to it-ish. Maud, remember Maud, right? Maud back here? Yeah. Well, she used a drawing of Humphrey Bogart as a baby in an ad campaign for the Mellons baby food company. Now, it wasn't a contest. They didn't win anything, all that stuff. But Humphrey Bogart, as a baby, his picture did appear as a baby on a can of baby food or whatever. Now, this is another weird thing about Humphrey Bogart's upbringing. His mother, Maud, earned over $50,000 a year at the peak of her career, which was huge money at the time. And it was way more than her husband made as a cardiopulmonary surgeon. That's a heart and lung surgeon. He only earned 20 grand a year. All right? Only 20 grand a year. She earned 50. No wonder she was about women's rights and stuff. So, the Bogarts lived in an Upper West Side apartment and had a cottage on a 55-acre estate on Canandaigua Lake in upstate New York. Yeah. And when Humphrey was young, he had a little group of friends and stuff, and they would go up to the lake and put on plays. Bogart had 2 younger sisters. His parents were super busy in their career, and they fought all the time because his mom was very headstrong. They showed very little emotion toward their children. Maud, the mother, told the kids to call her Maud instead of mom or mother. Never showed any physical affection for them. Bogart said when she was pleased, she would clap you on the shoulder like a man does. And Bogart said, I was brought up very unsentimentally and very straightforwardly. A kiss in our family was an event. Our mother and father didn't glug over my 2 sisters and me. By the way, Bogart was teased as a boy because he grew up in this wealthy family and they dressed him as such. He had curls. His hair was curled. He was very tidy. His mother had him pose in like Little Lord Fauntleroy clothes with frills and tight pants. And also his first name was Humphrey. So... and so from the early days of his upbringing, he kind of got some habits, one of which was kind of needling people or making fun of them. He liked to fish. He loved to boat, and he had an attraction to very strong-willed women like his mother. Now, Bogart attended the private Delancey School until the 5th grade, and then he went to a very prestigious school called the Trinity School. Because these people had money, so obviously they were going to send him to only the very just so sorts of, places to send your kids. And also, maybe his parents were kind of like, this is a way for us to get rid of him for a while. We'll send him to boarding school. Anyway, he was a very indifferent, sullen student who showed absolutely no interest in anything in terms of extracurricular activities. He later went to the Phillips Academy in Andover, Massachusetts, and that was a boarding school. And he only got in there because of his family's connections, okay? Although his parents hoped he would go on to Yale, Bogart left the Phillips Academy, which was obviously a very high-end college preparatory sort of place to go. And he left in 1918 after 1 semester. He failed 4 out of his 6 classes. And several reasons are given for this in legend and lore. One, he was expelled for throwing the headmaster into a rabbit pond on the campus. Others reasons, were smoking, drinking, poor academic performance, inappropriate comments made to the staff. And a third scenario He was withdrawn by his father for failing to improve his grades, but his parents were extremely disappointed in his performance and everything because they thought this is the way he should go given our station in life and the opportunities that we provided him with. So they're disappointed. So young Humphrey Bogart has no viable career options. He can't go to school anymore, and he knows he doesn't want to. So what did he do? And this is another thing I did not know that much about, but he enlisted in the United States Navy during World War I. While the war was going on, he enlisted. He never would have had to go, being a kid of wealthy means and going to these preparatory schools. But he did so in the spring of 1918, or as I call it, 19 and 18. He recalled later, in 18, war was great stuff. Paris, sexy French girls. Hot damn. Just to show you where Humphrey Bogart's mind was. Bogart was recorded as a model sailor who spent most of his time at sea ferrying troops back from Europe after the war was over. He left the service on June 18, 1919 at the rank of Petty Officer Second Class, which is actually pretty good for somebody who was in the Navy as short a time as he was. During World War II, years and years and years later, Bogart actually attempted to re-enlist in the Navy, but was rejected due to his age. So he volunteered for the Coastal Picket Force, which was just a bunch of ships that kind of voluntarily patrolled the shore and looked out for things, patrolling the California coastline in his yacht, the Santana, which we'll talk about a little bit more later. Now, Bogart had a trademark scar on his lip, and he was always doing that thing there. And he developed a lisp during his naval stint, that sort of lisp he used to use when he was talking. I'd rather have a hot dog at the ballpark beats a steak at the Ritz. You see, Louis, this looks like the beginning of a beautiful friendship. He had that kind of little lispy thing in his way, and he got that when he was in the Navy. There's several stories. They're all conflicting. In one, his lisp was caused by his lip being cut by, by the way, he was in the United States Coast Guard Reserve. He applied for that and couldn't get in. Anyway, one of the stories says that his lip was cut by shrapnel when his ship, the USS Leviathan, was shelled. But this ship was never shelled, is the only problem with that story. And Bogart may not have even gone to sea before the war was over. Another story held by longtime friend Nathaniel Benchley, father of Peter Benchley, who wrote Jaws, by the way, that had it told that Bogart was injured while taking a prisoner to the Portsmouth Naval Prison in Kittery, Maine. While changing trains in Boston, the handcuffed prisoner asked Bogart for a cigarette, and while Bogart was looking for a match, the prisoner smashed him across the mouth with the cuffs, and that's what cut Bogart's lip, and then the guy ran off. In another version, Bogart was struck in the mouth by a handcuff loosened while freeing the prisoner, and the other was still around the wrist. By the time Bogart was treated by a doctor, a scar had formed. David Niven, a friend of Bogart's and Academy Award-winning actor, said that when he first asked Bogart about his scar, Bogart said it was caused by a childhood accident. And Bogart said, "Goddamn doctor, instead of stitching it up, he screwed it up." According to David Niven here, the stories that Bogart got the scar during wartime were made up by the studios. Bogart's post-service physical did not mention the lip scar, although it noted many smaller scars. When actress Louise Brooks met Bogart in 1924. He had the scar on his upper lip, which Brooks, said Bogart may have had partially repaired before entering the film industry in 1930. Brooks said that his lip wound gave him no speech impediment either before or after it was mended. So I don't know. Anyway, Bogart returned home to find his father in very poor health. His medical practice was faltering, and much of the family's wealth was lost in bad timber investments. His character and values developed separately from his family while he was during the Navy. Really kind of were more formative than all the Richie Rich Boy stuff that he went through. He kind of became a common man when he was in the Navy, and he began to rebel against his parents and all their hobnobby, wealthy behaviors. He became a liberal who disliked pretension, phonies, snobs, sometimes defying conventional behavior and authority. He was also well-mannered, articulate, punctual, self-effacing, and standoffish. Now, liberal back then just meant not part of the wealthy class. He was part of the working class. After his naval service, he worked as a shipper and a bond salesman, joining the Coast Guard Reserve. Can you dig it? I knew that you could. The chef says the whole crew at Geraldine's is prepping up for this crazy night. Yeah, they're going to be going crazy there at Geraldine's Supper Club and Lounge in beautiful Indianapolis, Indiana, just off Fountain Square on English Avenue, because tomorrow is the 100 and something running of the Indianapolis 500. Supposed to rain, but Indianapolis is just overflowing today, I'm sure, with folks getting prepared to go to the track tomorrow and see the greatest spectacle in racing. After getting out of the service, Bogart dove headfirst into the jazz age lifestyle, always up for late night partying. When his meager wages were exhausted, he'd play chess against anyone who would play against him in arcades for $1 a match. And Humphrey Bogart was an incredible chess player, and he would make money that way to fund more drinking and carrying on. Mike Doyle of chess.com writes, before he made any money from acting, he would hustle players for dimes and quarters, playing in New York parks and at Coney Island. Bogart got a job with this fella here, William A. Brady, and he got a job with Brady's company, New World Films. It was a new company, called World Films, not New World Films. Although he wanted to try his hand at screenwriting, directing, and production, he wasn't good at any of those things. Bogart was the stage manager for Brady's daughter, Alice. Okay, this is one of those times I gotta shut down the old whiz-bangaroony and redo the thing. So how's everybody doing? Hope you're doing fine. I'm doing great, except I'm really still a little cheesed off. I had to listen to these CBS, end of CBS News radio stuff, which I was not happy about at all. And now it's no more. And that's what happens when you let a blogger, wow, froze up pretty good there. When you let a blogger run a news network. Anyway, so there's William A. Brady's daughter. Bogey was a stagehand in one of her plays, and that play was called A Ruined Lady. He made his own stage debut months later, and this is Humphrey Bogart's first acting role was a Japanese butler. In this woman's, that lady there's play called Drifting, he nervously delivered one line of dialogue, and he appeared in several of her other subsequent plays. Now, Bogart had been raised in this hoity-toity family, right? To believe that acting was like a lower down profession. It was for people of low class character and quality. But Bogart, he liked the late hours that actors kept and the attention that they got. Bogart said, "I was born to the rich, and this was the softest of rackets." He spent much of his free time in speakeasies, drinking heavily. And as a result, a barroom brawl was also the rumored cause of his lip damage. Preferring to learn by doing, Bogart never took a single acting lesson. He was just persistent and worked steadily in even the lowest of possible roles. He appeared in 18 Broadway productions between 1922 and 1935, and 11 of those were actually comedies, right? Bogart could be very funny on screen, but he wasn't necessarily known for comedy. And he's very funny in interviews, and I'll tell you about a show that he was on. He was very funny in a second. But he played juveniles or romantic supporting roles in drawing room comedies, and is reportedly the first actor to say, "Tennis, anyone?" on stage. According to Alexander Wolcott, an influential reviewer at the time. Oh, here's, by the way, sorry, audio podcast listeners, here's an early theatrical mention of Humphrey Bogart, and you can see it's in a play called Swifty. William A. Brady will present this play. That's the guy he was working for, and Humphrey Bogart is mentioned. Alexander Wolcott, though, which was this sort of foppish, influential reviewer in New York, said Bogart is what is usually and mercifully described as inadequate. But there were other critics that really liked him. Haywood Braun, reviewing one of his plays, said Humphrey Bogart gives the most effective performance, both dry and fresh, if that be possible. He played the juvenile lead in a comedy called Meet the Wife, which had a successful 232-run performance at the Claw Theater. Bogart did not like these early roles that had him all dandied up. He called them White Pants Willie roles. But it was while playing a double role at the Playhouse Theater in 1922 that he met actress Helen Menken here. They were married May 20th, 1926. Just a little over 100 years ago, at the Gramercy Park Hotel in New York City. Divorced just a year later, they remained friends. Menken said in her divorce filing that Bogart valued her career more than marriage, citing neglect and abuse. He married actress Mary Phillips about a year after his divorce at her mother's apartment in Hartford, Connecticut. Bogart and Phillips had worked together in the play Nerves during its brief run in 1924. Theater production dropped off sharply after the Wall Street crash of 1929, and many of the more photogenic actors headed for Hollywood. Bogart debuted on film with none other than Helen Hayes in the 1928 two-reeler The Dancing Town, which survives to this day. You can see copies of this movie. And for those of you who don't know, and many of you might not know, Helen Hayes here, there's a Helen Hayes Theater in New York. She was, for a long time, thought to be the finest actress in the United States of America. popular on film, popular on television when it came out, but really on Broadway. She was thought to be the gold standard for acting. He also appeared with Joan Blondell, yes, and Ruth Etting in a Vitaphone short, Broadway's Like That, which was rediscovered 33 years after it was released. So now Bogart is getting a little bit of film roles, right? And I'm apparently buffering. Wade Curtis says, also, I'm doing good on this rainy, almost chilly day. Hope you're as good as well. I love these episodes about old Hollywood. Have you done one on the mid-Atlantic accent? Wade, I don't recall. I think I have. You'd have to look it up. I can't search for it right now, but I'm pretty sure I have. I think I have. If not, I know I was going to. Fox signed a contract with the Fox Film Corporation for $750 a week, which is worth about $14,000 a week now. And it was there at the Fox Film Corporation that he met Spencer Tracy, a Broadway actor who Bogart liked and admired, and the two of them became super close friends and drinking buddies. Spencer Tracy, as a matter of fact, is the first one to call him Bogey. Spencer Tracy made his film debut in his only movie with Bogart, a movie by John Ford, a legendary Hollywood director, known very much for Westerns and for working with John Wayne. It was a sound film called Up the River, and both of them had leading roles. Now, Spencer Tracy got top billing, but Bogart's picture, as you can see, sorry, audio podcast listeners, what is the deal with my encoder not encoding right now, not sending any data? This is the second time it's done this, and it's not showing any problems at all on my, I guess it just delays or something, because it's not showing any problems at all on my encoder. It's just on the YouTube end. Thanks, YouTube. Anyway, where was I? As you can see, Bogey's picture's on the poster, but Spencer Tracy has got top billing, even though Bogey was billed fourth on the list. But his role was almost as large as Tracy's and much larger than the other people in front of him. In about a quarter of a century later, they were going to make The Desperate Hours together, and Tracy had to drop out. So Bogey then had a supporting role in Bad Sister in 1931 with Bette Davis, who was a big star, as you may or may not know. And he shuffled back and forth between Hollywood and the New York stage from 1930 to 1935, out of work for long periods of time. Very long periods of time. His parents had separated. His father died in 1934 in debt. Bogart eventually paid that debt off. He inherited his father's gold ring, which he wore in many of his films. At his father's deathbed, Bogart finally told his father how much he loved him, because remember, they were not a very close, affectionate family. Bogart's second marriage was very rocky. He was dissatisfied with his acting career. He was depressed and irritable, and he drank a lot. Bogart had a guy by the name of Arthur Hopkins, who didn't even see Bogart in a Broadway play called Invitation to Murder. He just heard the play from off stage, and he sent for Bogart, and he offered Bogart a breakthrough role, and that was as the murderer. There's the play that he heard Bogart in. He offered Bogart the role opposite Leslie Howard, in a play called The Petrified Forest. And he played an escaped murderer in Duke Mantee, which was a big, big role. This Hopkins guy said, when I saw the actor, I was somewhat taken aback. He was the one I never much admired. He was an antiquated juvenile who spent most of his stage life in white pants swinging a tennis racket. He seemed as far from a cold-blooded killer as one could get, but the voice, dry and tired, persisted. And it was that of Mantee. So he plays in this play, The Petrified Forest, 197 performances on Broadway in New York in 1935. Now, Leslie Howard right here was the star, okay? And Leslie Howard, you might remember from Gone with the Wind, big, big star. But critics said that the play was kind of a coming out party for Humphrey Bogart. Humphrey Bogart does the best work of his career as an actor, said one reviewer. Bogart said the play marked my deliverance from the ranks of the sleek, sybaritic, stiff-shirted, swallow-tailed smoothies to which I seemed condemned. But he still felt insecure. Warner Brothers bought the screen rights to The Petrified Forest in 1935. The play seemed ideal for the studio, which was known for movies with real-life criminals, such as John Dillinger and Dutch Schultz. Betty Davis and Leslie Howard were cast. There's Dillinger. There's Dutch Schultz. And Leslie Howard made it very clear, due to acting with him on Broadway, that he wanted Bogart to star in the film. But the studio tested a bunch of people, and they chose Edward G. Robinson. Now, Edward G. Robinson would not be a terrible choice. He played gangsters all the time. He had star appeal, and he was contracted to Warner Brothers. Bogart found this out, and he cables the news to Leslie Howard, who was in Scotland. And Leslie Howard sent a note back to Jack Warner, said, I insist Bogart play Mantee. No Bogart, no deal. So Leslie Howard really stood up for Humphrey Bogart. And when Warner Brothers saw this, they gave in and they cast Humphrey Bogart in the film Petrified Forest. Jack Warner wanted Bogart to use a stage name, but Bogart declined because he's like, I've built a reputation with my name in Broadway. I'm not changing it now. The film version of The Petrified Forest was released in 1936. According to Variety, Bogart's menace leaves nothing wanting. Frank Nugent wrote for the New York Times that Bogart can be a psychopathic gangster more like Dillinger the outlaw himself. And the movie was a big hit at the box office, and it made Bogart a star. Bogart never forgot the favor that Leslie Howard did him, and named his only daughter Leslie Howard Bogart after Leslie Howard in 1952. Despite his success in The Petrified Forest, which was definitively an A movie, it wasn't a B movie, Bogart signed not that great of a 26-week contract at $550 a week, which is about $12,000 a week in today's money, which a lot of us would say, well, that doesn't sound too bad to me. But for movie stars at the time, it wasn't that great. And he was typecast as a gangster in a series of B-movie crime dramas. Now, Bogart was proud of how well he was doing. All right, don't get that twisted. But the fact that he was playing nothing but gangsters kind of bothered him. He said, I can't get in a mild discussion without turning it into an argument. There must be something in my tone of voice or this arrogant face, something that antagonizes everybody. Nobody likes me on sight. I suppose that's why I'm cast as the heavy. Well, despite all this success, Warner Brothers had no interest in developing Humphrey Bogart as a star. His roles were repetitive, they were physically demanding, studios weren't air conditioned, and his job at Warner's, they worked him like a dog, basically. Okay. And Bogart didn't like this. He wanted a cushy job. He wanted an easy job. So although he disliked these roles that were chosen for him, he continued to do the work. In the first 34 pictures for Warner's, he told journalist George Fraser, "I was shot in 12, electrocuted or hanged in 8, and I was a jailbird in 9. He averaged a film every 2 months between 1936 and 1940, sometimes working on 2 films at the same time. So if he's doing 2 films, a film every 2 months, that's 6 a year. He made 24 movies in 4 years. Yeah. Bogart used these years to begin developing his film persona, a wounded, stoic, cynical, charming, vulnerable, self-mocking loner with a code of honor. The amenities at Warner's were few compared to a big prestigious studio like MGM, Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer. Bogart thought that the Warner's wardrobe department was cheap, and so he often wore his own suits in his films. He chose his own dog named Zero to play Pard, his character's dog, in High Sierra. His disputes with Warner Brothers over roles and money were similar to those waged by the studio with more established and less, easy to get along with stars like Bette Davis and James Cagney. Okay? Now, Warner Brothers, Jack Warner was just a cheap jerk is the thing, and all the stars had problems with him. Leading men at Warner Brothers included George Raft here. They included James Cagney, who you see in a movie with Humphrey Bogart. That would be the movie The Roaring Twenties that they made in 1939. The last movie they made together. They made several movies together. Most of the studio's better scripts went to George Raft or James Cagney, leaving Bogart with what was left, okay, which, Edward G. Robinson might get some of those. And, of course, Bogart had to play second fiddle to him as well. And movies like San Quentin or Racket Busters or You Can't Get Away with Murder. I mean, all these movies, as you can see, they're very gangstery, prisonery, criminally. His only leading role during that period was a movie called Dead End, and he basically was doing a fictionalized version of Babyface Nelson. Bogart played violent roles so often that in Neville Shute's 1939 novel, Whatever Happened to the Corbetts, there's Babyface Nelson, by the way. What happened to the Corbetts? A person in the novel replies, "I've seen Humphrey Bogart with one often enough when asked if he knows how to operate an automatic weapon." It's like, do you know how to use an automatic weapon? I've seen Humphrey Bogart do it enough. That's how often and how much of a given it was that Bogart would be playing a gangster in a movie. Although he played a very, very vast variety of supporting roles in movies like Angels with Dirty Faces, Bogart's roles were either rivals of characters played by Cagney or Edward G. Robinson or a secondary member of their gang. In Black Legion, a movie one critic described as intelligent and exciting, if rather earnest, he played a good man who was caught up with and destroyed by a racist organization. Studio cast Bogart as a wrestling promoter in Swing Your Lady, a hillbilly musical, which Humphrey Bogart considered his worst film performance ever. He played a rejuvenated, formerly dead scientist in The Return of Dr. X, his only horror film. And he said, if it had been Jack Warner's blood, I wouldn't have minded so much. The trouble was they were drinking mine, and I was making this stinking movie. His wife, Mary, had a stage hit in a thing called A Touch of Brimstone and refused to abandon her Broadway career for Hollywood. After the play closed, however, Mary relented and she insisted on continuing her career, and they divorced in 1937. But in 1938, Bogart, man, there's Jack Warner, the cheapskate that was driving Humphrey Bogart into an early grave with all these terrible movies. Bogart never stayed unmarried for long. He got a divorce, and, the next year, he entered his third marriage, a turbulent marriage to an actress named Mayo Matho, a lively, friendly woman when sober, but paranoid and aggressive when drunk. And she was drunk a lot of the time. She Bogart was unfaithful to her, which eventually he was with Lauren Bacall, but they drifted apart. Her drinking increased. She would throw plants, crockery, and other objects at Bogart. She set their house afire, stabbed him with a knife, slashed her wrist several times. Bogart was very confrontational with her, and sometimes he was violent as well. The press called them the Battling Bogarts. According to their friend Julius Epstein, the Bogart-Matho marriage was the sequel to the Civil War. Bogart bought a motor launch, which he named Sluggy, which was his nickname for his wife. He said, I like a jealous wife. We got on so well together, but we don't have illusions about each other. I wouldn't give you 2 cents for a dame without a temper. Louise Brooks said that except for Leslie Howard, no one contributed as much to Humphrey's success as his third wife, Mayo. Her influence was increasingly destructive, however, and Bogart also continued to drink. They drank and drank and drank and drank. He had a lifelong disdain for pretension and phoniness, and was tortured by these inferior movies he was making. He rarely watched his own films. He avoided premieres. He'd issue fake press releases about his private life to keep the press satisfied. And when he thought an actor, director, or studio had done something below standards, he spoke publicly about it. He advised Robert Mitchum that the only way to stay alive in Hollywood was to be an a gangster. He was not the most popular of actors, and in some Hollywood circles, they shunned him to be clear of trouble with the studios that did not like Bogart, because he'd say, that movie stinks. Leon Kennedy says, hey, Tom, I miss you. I've been really sick this week. Got to pull myself together. Well, get well soon, Leon Kennedy. That's the main thing. Bogart said all over Hollywood, they're constantly advising me, oh, you mustn't say that. That'll get you in a lot of trouble. When I remark that some picture, or writer, or director, or producer is no good, I don't get it. If he isn't any good, why can't you say so? If more people mention it, pretty soon it might start having an effect. The local idea that anyone making $1,000 a week is sacred and is beyond the realm of criticism never strikes me as particularly sound. High Sierra. Yes, High Sierra, directed by, directed by Raoul Walsh, featured a screenplay that was written by the legendary John Huston, Bogart's friend and drinking partner. He had a lot of drinking partners. Paul Muni, George Raft, Cagney, and Robinson turned down the lead role, giving Bogart the opportunity to play a character with some depth. Raoul Walsh initially opposed Bogart's casting, preferring George Raft for the part. It was Bogart's last major film as a gangster. Supporting role followed in The Big Shot, released in 1942. He worked well with Ida Lupino, which sparked more jealousy with his wife. Yes. And that film there cemented a strong personal and professional connection between Humphrey Bogart and John Huston. Bogart admired Huston for his skill as a writer, and Bogart loved to read. He could quote Plato, Alexander Pope, Ralph Waldo Emerson, and 1,000 lines of Shakespeare, and he even subscribed to the Harvard Law Review. And he admired writers. Some of his best friends were screenwriters, including Louis Bromfeld and Nathaniel Benchley and Nunnally Johnson. He enjoyed intense, provocative conversation, usually with very stiff drinks, as did John Huston. They liked to get drunk and have long conversations. They were both rebellious. They liked childish pranks. Huston was reportedly easily bored during production and admired Bogart for his acting talent and his intense concentration on set. So that's how it came to be that Bogart was in the very first directorial effort of John Huston, which was called The Maltese Falcon. And it was just an incredible film. It still is. If you haven't, I'm sure it's free to see everywhere. Yeah. They wanted to cast George Raft, but fearing that it would be nothing but a sanitized version of a previous effort of trying to make this movie, George Raft turned the movie down, and then John Huston said, awesome, we've got Humphrey Bogart. And Bogart was on screen with Sidney Greenstreet and Peter Lorre and Elisha Cook Jr. and Mary Astor in just an incredible film. Commercial hit, major triumph for John Huston. Bogart was unusually happy with the film. It's practically a masterpiece. I don't have many things I'm proud of, but that's one. And then right after that, he plays his first romantic lead in Casablanca. Some have called it the quintessential Hollywood movie. He plays Rick Blaine, nightclub owner hiding from a suspicious past, negotiating a fine line among the Nazis and the French underground, and unresolved feelings for his ex-girlfriend. Reviewer Bosley Crowther, a legend, wrote that Bogart's character was used to inject a cold point of tough resistance to evil forces afoot in Europe today. That's another thing about Casablanca. It was made during the heart of World War II. The film was directed by Michael Curtiz and featured Ingrid Bergman, Claude Rains, Sidney Greenstreet, just an incredible cast. Bogart and Bergman, their relationship was very, very professional, although Bogart's crazy jealous wife Mayo assumed otherwise. Off the set, they hardly spoke. Ingrid Bergman, who was known for having affairs with her leading man, known for it, later said about Bogart, I kissed him, but I never knew him. Yeah. Casablanca won the Academy Award for Best Picture at the 16th Academy Awards. Bogart was nominated for Best Actor in a leading role, but lost. The film vaulted Bogart from fourth place to first in the studio's roster, overtaking James Cagney finally. He more than doubled his annual salary to over $460,000 by 1946, which is about $7.5 million in today's money. And that made him the world's highest paid actor. Yes. Yes. Bogart went on a USO and war bonds tour with his wife in 1943 and 1944, making very difficult trips to Italy and North Africa, including Casablanca. He still had to do crappy movies because the Warners were that awful right? And conflicted with the front office of the studio all the time. He sold a hell of a lot of war bonds, but he starred in, now I got to do my thing again. All right, well, we'll do that. Say, how's everybody doing? Hope everybody's doing great. Let me see if there's anything in the chat room real quick. Robert Mitchum would be great. I love Farewell, My Lovely, the best Phil Marlowe, in my opinion. Well, he did 2 Phil Marlowe movies toward the end of his career. They're both really good. I have both of them, I think, on might be Blu-ray. Farewell, My Lovely is one of them. And I think they were both made in England, if I'm not mistaken. I can't be 100% sure of that. But, yeah, Robert Mitchum's Farewell, My Lovely is really, really, really good. It's really, really good. Let me see here. Big shot. War bond. There we go. There we go. Keeps making me do this, but I did learn that it makes me do this, so I have to improvise, overcome, and adapt. And I look. Oh, there we go. Well, hey, we can't have that. Let's get that there. Let's go. Well, we can't really have that either. I'll work it out as I go. Anyway, he still had to play in crappy movies like Conflict. He did turn down God Is My Co-Pilot, which... Howard Hawks, the director, famous director, well, he introduced Bogart and a woman by the name of Lauren Bacall while Bogart was filming Passage to Marseille in 1944. And the three of them, Howard Hawks and Bogart and Bacall, subsequently collaborated on To Have and Have Not, a very loosely adapted version of Ernest Hemingway's novel. And it was the film debut of Lauren Bacall, who was super young at the time. It's similar to Casablanca, the same kind of hero, same kind of enemies. Piano player, portrayed this time by Hoagie Carmichael instead of Sam, you know. Play it for him, you can play it for me, that guy. There, that's a little better, I think. When they met, Lauren Bacall was 19 years old. Bogey was 44. And he nicknamed her Baby. Now, she'd been a model since age 16, and she was in 2 plays that were failed. Bogart liked her high cheekbones, her green eyes, her blonde hair, her skinniness, her maturity, her poise, and her honesty. He reportedly said, "I just saw your test. We'll have a lot of fun together." Their emotional bond was strong from the start. Well, that's a different picture. Let's leave that there. His early meetings with Bacall were discreet and brief. Their separations were bridged by love letters. The relationship made it easier for Bacall to make her first film, and Bogart did his best to put her at ease with joking and coaching. He encouraged her to steal scenes. And Howard Hawks did his best to highlight her role as well and found Bogart easy to direct. Now, this is the famous movie, when you want me, Steve, all you got to do is whistle. You know how to whistle, don't you, Steve? Just put your lips together and blow. I mean, she was pretty sultry for this. The problem being, Howard Hawks, where's my Howard Hawks picture? There it is. Howard Hawks here, he began to disapprove of Bogart and Bacall's relationship. He considered himself Bacall's protector and mentor, and Bogart was, working his way in there, not usually drawn to his starlets. The director, Howard Hawks, who was married, by the way, just like Bogart was, also fell for Lauren Bacall. He told her that she meant nothing to Bogart and threatened to send her to a terrible, what they called Poverty Row studio, Monogram Pictures. It was a cheapo studio. Bogart calmed her down and then went after Hawks. He's like, look, I'm a much bigger star than you, Mr. Director Boy. And Jack Warner settled the dispute and filming went back to normal schedule. Hawks said about Bacall, Bogey fell in love with the character she played, so she had to keep playing the character for the rest of her life. But Lauren Bacall wrote in her memoir about the love she and Bogart shared, no one's ever written a romance better than we lived it. And she said regarding Bogart's personality, he was a very gentle soul. He was very strong, very sure about what he believed in, and he thought he was, and very sure about what he thought it was important and not important. He couldn't be pushed around, but he was a gentle man. I was very, very lucky to have even met him, much less have been married to him. He had extraordinary gifts. He was much more of a complete individual than most people are. He had the kind of standards my mother had. Their values were very much the same. It was very interesting. He had tremendous character and a great sense of honor and would not tolerate lies, even if they asked him what he thought of a movie. So months after wrapping up To Have and Have Not, Bogart and Bacall were reunited for an encore. The film noir classic, The Big Sleep, based on the novel by Raymond Chandler, with some script help from William Faulkner. Raymond Chandler, one of my two favorite authors, by the way, admired the actor's performance. By the way, do me a favor, like, share, subscribe, retweet, notification bell. That would really help me out around here. Chandler said Bogart can be tough without a gun. Also, he has a sense of humor that contains that grating undertone of contempt. Although the film was completed and scheduled to release in 1945, it was withdrawn and re-edited to add scenes exploiting Bogart and Bacall's box office chemistry in To Have and To Have Not, and the publicity surrounding their off-screen relationship. At the insistence of director Howard Hawks, they agreed to a rewrite of Bacall's scenes to heighten the insolent quality that had intrigued critics. And the dialogue, especially in the added scenes supplied by Hawks, was full of sexual innuendo. The film was successful, although some critics found its plot confusing and overly complicated. It's not. Watch it. The Big Sleep's another classic, man. It really is. According to Raymond Chandler, Hawks and Bogart argued about who killed the chauffeur. When Chandler received an inquiry by telegram, he goes, I don't know who killed him. It doesn't matter. Humphrey Bogart filed for divorce from Mayo Matho in February of 1945. He and Bacall married in a small ceremony at the country home of Bogart's close friend, Pulitzer Prize-winning author Louis Bromfield. They moved into a $160,000, that'd be about $2.8 million today, white brick mansion in an exclusive neighborhood of Los Angeles' Holmby Hills. At the time of the 1950 United States census, the couple was living at 2707 Benedict Canyon, Drive in Beverly Hills with their son and nurse. Let's just get a little drink here. Their son and nursemaid. Bacall is listed as Betty Bogart. The marriage was mostly a happy one, but not without its troubles. Bogart's drinking was sometimes problematic. He initially wasn't happy about having a first child, fearing it would create distance between himself and Bacall. He loved the sea. It made her seasick, but they never stopped loving each other. In a 1997 Parade magazine cover story, Lauren Bacall told the reporter that Bogart said, if you want a career more than anything, I will do everything I can to help you. I will send you on your way, but I will not marry you. I've been through it, and I know it doesn't work. He was right. He loved me, and wanted me with him. I made the deal, and I stuck to it, and I'm damn glad that I did. Bogart bought the Santana, a 55-foot sailing yacht from actor Dick Powell in 1945. That's Dick Powell. And spent about 30 weekends a year on the water, with a particular fondness for sailing around Catalina Island. An actor needs something to stabilize his personality, something to nail down what he really is, not what he is currently pretending to be. Bogart joined the Coast Guard Temporary Reserve. The suspenseful movie in 1947, Dark Passage, was Bogart and Bacall's next collaboration. Vincent Perry, Bogart, is intent on finding the real murderer for a crime of which he was convicted and sentenced to prison. Bogart and Bacall's last pairing in a film was Key Largo, directed by John Huston. Edward G. Robinson was billed second behind Bogart as gangster Johnny Rocco, a seething older synthesis of many of his early bad guy roles. The billing question was hard fought, and at the end of at least one of the trailers, Robinson is listed above Bogart in the list of actors' names. Robinson had top billing over Bogart in their previous movies together. Brother Orchid, Bullets or Ballots, Kid Galahad, and The Amazing Dr. Clitterhouse. Brother Orchid, by the way, really good movie. You should see it. It's very funny. In some posters for Key Largo, Robinson's picture's somewhat bigger, but in the end, who cares? Who really cares, you know? Claire Trevor won an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress in Key Largo, by the way. Riding high in 1947 with a new 15-year contract with Warner Brothers, which provided limited script refusal and the right to form his own production company, Bogart starred with Barbara Stanwyck in The Two Mrs. Carrolls. And then he rejoined with John Huston in another incredible classic, The Treasure of the Sierra Madre. Oh, boy, is that a good one. Is that a good one. Badges? We don't need no stinking badges. A tale of greed among three gold prospectors in Mexico. Lacking a love interest or a happy ending, it was considered a risky project. Bogart later said about co-star Walter Huston, John Huston's father, "He's probably the only performer in Hollywood whom I'd gladly lose a scene to." Film was shot in the heat of the summer for greater realism in the atmosphere and was grueling to make. But the results were amazing. Bogart created his own production company called Santana Productions, named after his yacht and the cabin cruiser in Key Largo. He had the right to create his own company, and that made Jack Warner of Warner Brothers just furious, fearing that other stars would do the same and the studios would lose their power. So Bogart did it. And there he is from Treasure of Sierra Madre. God, is he awesome in that movie. But Jimmy Stewart was doing it, and Henry Fonda was doing it, and Jack Warner didn't like it one little bit. Crybaby. Studios were already starting to buckle from the impact of television, and so they just didn't like it. He only made a couple movies, though. It shouldn't have, Bogey, that is. He made Chain Lightning and The Enforcer. So, ended up dissolving his contract with Warner's by mutual consent in 1953, except for Beat the Devil in 1953, which was originally distributed in this country, the United States, by United Artists. Santana released its films through Columbia Pictures. And very quickly, Bogart starred in Knock on Any Door. He starred in Tokyo Joe. And then In a Lonely Place, and Sirocco. In a Lonely Place, man, oh man, oh man, is considered a high point of film noir. He plays Dixon Steele, an embittered writer with a violent reputation. Primary suspect in the murder of a young woman. He falls in love with failed actress played by Gloria Graham here. And many people that knew Bogart felt this was the closest to Humphrey Bogart himself, the person. Beat the Devil was the last movie that he did with John Huston. It was co-written by Truman Capote. And anyway. But In a Lonely Place, really good movie. Gloria Graham's awesome. Awesome. Outside Santana Productions, he starred with Katharine Hepburn in the John Huston-directed movie The African Queen, another huge classic. And this is the film that would ultimately earn Humphrey Bogart his one and only Academy Award. That novel was overlooked for 15 years until producer Sam Spiegel and John Huston bought the rights. They sent Katharine Hepburn the book. She suggested Bogart for the male lead, believing that he was the only man that could have played the part. And they went and they shot it, and it was a difficult shoot because they shot it in the Belgian Congo. Bogart was to get 30% of the profits. Hepburn was 10%, very small salaries. They met in London, Hepburn and Bogart, and said, let's do it. Bogart said, all I ate was baked beans, canned asparagus, and Scotch whiskey. Whenever a fly bit Houston or me, it dropped dead because they just drank and drank and drank. And the only people that didn't get diphtheria or some crazy tropical disease were Bogart and Houston because they didn't eat any local food. They drank booze and they ate canned stuff. Katharine Hepburn was famously a teetotaler. She didn't drink at all. And she lost weight and became very ill. And, the crew had to overcome illness, army ant infestations, leaky boats, lousy food, attacks from hippos, heat, isolation, a boat fire. His performance as cantankerous skipper Charlie Allnut earned Bogart an Academy Award for Best Actor, and he considered it his best performance of his entire film career. Promising friends if he won, his speech would break the convention of thanking everyone in sight. He only said, it's a long way from the Belgian Congo to the stage of this theater. It's nicer to be here. Thank you very much. No one does it alone. As in tennis, you need a good opponent or partner to bring it in the best you can. John and Kate helped me to be where I am now. Despite the award and its accompanying recognition, Bogart later said, the way to survive an Oscar is to never try to win another one. Too many stars win it, and then they have to figure they have to top themselves. They become afraid to take chances. As a result, a lot of dull performances and dull pictures. The African Queen was Bogart's first starring Technicolor role. And then another giant classic. He actually dropped his asking price. Let's see if we got anything there. The Wolf is Here. Awesome. Wade Curtis said, I've never seen Brother Orchid. I'll have to put that on my list. Oh, it's hilarious. Wade Curtis says, my dad loves saying that classic Badgers line. Badgers? We don't need no stinking Badgers. It's actually badges, not Badgers. But Bogart dropped his asking price to get a role in his next film, which was The Cane Mule. Oh, there he is in The African Queen with Katharine Hepburn. They went and saw the Pope, by the way, before they made The African Queen. And African Queen rekindled his love of boating again. And there's the style of boat that he went out and got. Anyway, he dropped his price to be in the drama The Caine Mutiny and play Captain Queeg. He was kind of bitter about that, but he delivered a very strong performance and received his final Oscar nomination. Despite the success that he had for playing the role, he was still melancholy. He grumbled, and he fought with the studio, and his health began to deteriorate. Captain Queeg here is paranoid, is a self-pitying character, small-minded. He then played in Sabrina. There he is as Captain Queeg. I found the strawberries, and with mechanical cunning, and he's so good in that role. He was then in Sabrina. Billy Wilder wanted Cary Grant, but chose Bogart to play against his younger Playboy sibling William Holden for the affection of Audrey Hepburn. Although Bogart was lukewarm about the part, he agreed to it on a handshake with Wilder without a finished script, but with the director's assurance he would take good care of Bogart during filming. It didn't work out, though. Humphrey Bogart did not get along with Billy Wilder, and he did not like all the last-minute script changes and accused Wilder of favoring Hepburn and Holden on and off the set. Wilder was the opposite of Bogart's favorite director, John Huston, both style and personality. Bogart complained to the press that Wilder is overbearing, is kind of a Prussian German with a writing crop. He's the type of director I don't like to work with. The picture is a crop of crap. I got sick and tired of Who Gets Sabrina. Billy Wilder said, "We parted as friends, but finally made up." Despite the acrimony, the film was successful, and Bogart was incredible in it. So, Joseph Mankiewicz, The Barefoot Contessa, was the next film. There he is in Sabrina with Audrey Hepburn, who's just, I've never found her attractive, but The Barefoot Contessa was filmed in Rome. Bogart plays a broken down guy that runs into this flamenco dancer star. Bogart didn't like working on this film because of Ava Gardner and starring with her. She had just broken up with his good buddy from the Rat Pack, Frank Sinatra, and he did not like her inexperienced performance. Bogart was generally praised as the film's best feature, and he had a discreet affair with a French actress, well, not a French actress, his longtime studio assistant, who he drank with and took sailing, Verita Boulevard Thompson. When Bacall found them together, she extracted an expensive shopping spree from her husband, and the three traveled together after that. Bogart could be generous with actors, particularly those who were blacklisted or down on their luck or having personal problems. There's Ava Gardner. He didn't like doing the thing with Ava Gardner. During the filming of The Left Hand of God, he noticed his co-star Jean Tierney having a hard time remembering her lines and behaving oddly. He coached her, feeding her her lines. Familiar with mental illness because of his sister's bouts with depression, he encouraged her to seek treatment. He also stood behind Joan Bennett and insisted on her as his co-star in the film We're No Angels, when a scandal made her persona non grata with studio head Jack Warner. Bogart shot The Harder They Fall, which was a boxing drama with Rod Steiger, and Rod Steiger said he got on well with Bogart, and, Bogart told him one time Bogart was very used to getting on the set exactly at 9 and leaving precisely at 6. And one time Bogart was staying after, and that surprised Rod Steiger. He said, "Why are you doing that?" And Bogart said, "They want to shoot some retakes of my close-ups because my eyes are too watery. And after the film, Steiger realized it was because Bogart was in pain. He was actually dying of cancer at the time. Bogart very rarely performed on television. He and Bacall appeared on Edward R. Murrow's Person to Person, and the two disagreed on the answer to every question. He also appeared in a television production of The Petrified Forest, and he appeared on the Jack Benny program, where a surviving kinescope of the live telecast captures him in his only TV sketch comedy performance, and it's a great, great performance. That NBC adaptation of The Petrified Forest was on Producers Showcase. Bogart got top billing. Henry Fonda played Leslie Howard's role, and Bacall played Betty Davis's part. Lauren Bacall donated the only known kinescope of the 1955 performance to the Museum of Television and Radio, now the Paley Center for Media, where it remains archived for viewing in New York and L.A., and it's now in the public domain. Bogart also performed radio adaptations of some of his best-known films like Casablanca, The Maltese Falcon, Treasure of the Sierra Madre, and recorded a radio series called Bold Venture with Bacall. Humphrey Bogart became a father at age 49 when Bacall gave birth to their son, Stephen Humphrey Bogart. During the filming of Tokyo Joe, the name was taken from Steve, Bogart's character in To Have and Have Not. Stephen became an author and biographer and hosted a television special about his father on Turner Classic Movies. The couple's second child, Leslie Howard Bogart, was, of course, named after Leslie Howard. The Rat Pack. Bogart was a founding member and original leader of the Hollywood Rat Pack with all of those people. We covered that in my show about the Rat Pack. It was Frank Sinatra, Judy Garland, David Niven, Angie Dickinson, and Bacall's the one that named them. She said when she saw the drunks hanging out at her house, she said, "You look like a damn Rat Pack." The name stuck and was made official at Romanov's in Beverly Hills. Asked by columnist Earl Wilson, that guy, what the group's purpose was, Bacall replied, "To drink a lot of bourbon and stay up late." Earl Wilson was a syndicated columnist even when I was a kid. After signing a long-term deal with Warner Brothers, Bogart predicted with glee his teeth and hair would fall out before his contract ended. But by 1955, his health was failing. And in the wake of Santana, his production company, Bogart had formed a new company, had plans for another film, and unfortunately, his persistent cough and difficulty eating became too serious to ignore, and he dropped the project. A heavy smoker and drinker, Bogart had developed esophageal cancer by 1955. He didn't talk about his health and visited a doctor in January of 1956 after considerable persuasion from Lauren Bacall. The disease worsened, and several weeks later, on March 1st, Bogart had surgery to remove his esophagus and 2 lymph nodes and a rib. The surgery was unsuccessful and chemotherapy followed. He had additional surgery in November of 1956 when the cancer had metastasized. Although he became too weak to walk up and down stairs, he joked despite the pain, "Put me in the dumbwaiter and I'll ride down to the first floor in style." It was then altered to accommodate his wheelchair. Frank Sinatra, Katharine Hepburn, and Spencer Tracy visited him on January 13, 1957. In an interview, Katharine Hepburn said, "Spence patted him on the shoulder and said, 'Good night, Bogey.' Bogey turned his eyes to Spence very quietly with a sweet smile, covered Spence's hand with his own, and said, 'Goodbye, Spence.'" And Spencer Tracy's heart stood still. He understood. He wasn't saying good night. He was saying goodbye. Bogart lapsed into a coma and died the following day. At the time of his death, he weighed only 80 pounds. A simple funeral was held at All Saints Episcopal Church with music by Bogart's favorite composers. Among those who attended the funeral were Mary Astor, Ingrid Bergman, James Cagney, Harry Cohn, Bing Crosby, Olivia de Havilland, Errol Flynn, Henry Fonda, James Mason, Gregory Peck, David O. Selnick, and Jack Warner. Bacall asked Spencer Tracy to give the eulogy, but he was too upset, and John Huston spoke himself instead. He never took his work too seriously. He regarded the somewhat gaudy figure of Bogart the star with an amused cynicism. Bogart the actor he held in deep respect. That's my John Huston imitation. In each of the fountains at Versailles there is a pike which keeps all the carp active, otherwise they would grow overfat and die. Bogey took rare delight in performing a similar duty in the fountains of Hollywood. Yet his victims seldom bore him any malice, and when they did, not for long. His shafts were fashioned only to stick into the outer layer of complacency and not to penetrate through to the regions of the spirit where real injuries are done. He's quite irreplaceable. There will never be another like him. Bogart was cremated, and his ashes were interred in Forest Lawn Memorial Park's Columbarium of Eternal Light and its Garden of Memory in Glendale, California. He was buried with a small gold whistle that had been part of a charm bracelet he had given to Bacall before they married. On it was inscribed, "If you want anything, just whistle," which of course alludes to the scene in To Have and Have Not, where Bacall's character says, shortly after their first meeting, "You know how to whistle, don't you, Steve? You just put your lips together and blow." Bogart's estate had a gross value of $910,000 and a net value of $737,000. Naturally, he was blessed with a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. He did win the Academy Award for African Queen. There are countless tributes in almost every form of media. And film festivals, cartoons, songs. In the Year of the Cat, 1976 song by Al Stewart. In the Morning from a Bogart Movie. In the lyrics of Bertie Higgins' song Key Largo, it refers to them. There's too many to list. Notable radio appearances, too many to list. So that, ladies and gentlemen, is really all I have to tell you about the legend that was Humphrey Bogart. Humphrey Bogart. Oh, let me see here. We got a lot going on in our little room here. Let me get rid of a few things and then add a few things and do a few things and make some things a little nicer than, they might otherwise could be. I don't know, man. I'm just trying to do a show here. It's not like I'm Humphrey Bogart. I'm not that cool. Just trying, There we go. How about that? How about that fella right there? Let's just put him right there next to the ugly guy. Yeah, there. Bogey. There we go. That one's off. All right. In our live YouTube chat room, we have... Yeah, the Wolf says, you mean we don't need no badges, yeah. Zalipa says, hi, Kim, Tom, and all. Hello, Zalipa. The Wolf says, hello, Zalipa. People saying hi. We do have the most cheerful chat room on the internet. It's verified by independent sources. Wade Curtis says, African Queen. That's the one with Bud Abbott and Lou Costello, right? That's a joke, of course. Yeah. The Wolf says, you mean you're okay? It's a joke. The Wolf says, I like Dark Passage. That's a good one. Rumpled Trenchcoat says, forget it. Humph, it's Bogart Town. People saying hi. People saying hi. People saying hi. Rumple Trenchcoat has been a member for 25 months. It says, nice lamp. I don't know how to use these chats. I don't know. Just you used it fine. Might mention, a week from today will be my birthday extravaganza. Arsenal will be playing Paris Saint-Germain, better known as PSG, in the Champions League final. So the time may be different, but that'll be going on. Tomorrow's show will be on LA law. I don't know what's coming up next week, but I do know we are going to do Richie Blackmore. Is that on the back of this? I had that on we're going to do Briscoe County, The Adventures of Briscoe County Jr. Maybe next Sunday we'll do Chico and the Man. Well, I thought I'd written Richie Blackmore. Oh, here it is. Oh, we'll also, coming up here, be doing the TV show Mission Impossible. And I'm still ticked off that CBS News Radio, the very last broadcast was last night. And I got to tell you, it's just, I'm so sick and tired of people going, well, that just proves that radio's a dinosaur and it's If I was to start quoting you the number of people that still get their news from radio and still listen to the radio every single day, particularly for news, especially on the local level, especially for breaking news, it's 60, 70, 80, 90 million. And it's like, you can't figure out a way to make that network work. Cut staff if you have to. Do a lot of things if you have to. The blogger that they hired to run CBS News, okay, blogger, right? Blogger, okay? She's been promising this dynamic, amazing content the whole time she's been in charge. We're all still waiting for it. We'd all still like to see that. But if you were to create it, and you were to go along with the party line of, well, podcasting is much more blah, 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 blah. Well, why can't you distribute the podcasting across that network of 1,000 stations and 80, 90 million people? Why wouldn't you do that? It seems like a no-brainer to me. You've already created it, you've already invested in it, and now you have a ready-made distribution system that's going to be way more than you're ever going to get through downloads and stream plays. But just get rid of it because a blogger can't make it work. I don't understand it. I'm never going to understand it. But it's gone now. I do feel that local radio news seems the least biased, especially when compared to the big networks. I would agree with you. I would also say that CBS News Radio pretty unbiased. You know, that 5-minute top of the hour, 1 minute bottom, not a lot of room for bias in there. And they always gave both sides. You know, President Trump says this, the so-and-so says this. It's both sides, whatever. Just ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. 100 years of breaking news, usually quicker than video. You know, it doesn't take much to get somebody with a cell phone but you want to get a camera, whatever. It's absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. So it's gone. There's no more of that going on. No more of that going on. Give us 10 minutes, we'll give you the world. That's where I got my news for ages. Do you know how many years? Thank you, Rumple Trenchcoat. Chef says, another great show. Thank you. Chef, hey, keep the home fires burning for that Indy 500 night before the 500 dinner preparation there in Indianapolis. Do you know how many years I spent hitting that top of the hour chime, that ding, having to back time, whether it was music or audio or even just interviewing someone and looking at the clock. And on News Radio 1080 KRLD, that news wheel is what it's called. It's the clock where you have to have traffic and weather together on the 8s. And you've got a certain amount of stories to hit 8, 18, 28, 38, 48, and then 58, hit the 58 with news and traffic. And in that 2 minutes, get the news and get the traffic, and then the preview of the next hour, and say the name of everyone on the broadcast coming up. We'll take a look at the Fort Worth, coming up, we'll take a look at the Fort Worth Fair. Or what was it called? We'll take a look at what's happening at the Fort Worth Stockyards and the auction that went on there today. We'll also look at the Dallas Cowboys and their playoff game against Green Bay. I'm Tom Gulley. Traffic is with whomever. News is, weather with Chief Meteorologist Dan Brunoff and producer blah, 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 blah. Bing! It's 7 o'clock. Do you have any freaking hours of that over the 40 years and over the 10 years of just KRLD? I mean, it's think about all those local stations that can never hope to do national news on their own, ever. And frankly, don't want to take their local news focus away to do that. Yeah, I know you got AP and maybe they're trialing something out. I know a lot of stations are going to ABC and NBC doesn't really kind of exist anymore. They're like an amalgam of some other things. But anyway, it's a joke. It's a joke. So Ellison might not like the lack of bias. I would have tuned in. I don't know who Ellison is, but anyway. And then I got to argue with some hunyuck this morning about you need to look at the ratings for a man called Shenandoah. Oh, do I? Why don't you make 9 or 10 like incorrect assertions so I can do that? It was one of ABC's top 5 shows. No, it wasn't. Anyway. Any freaking way. All right, that's all I got. Tomorrow we are doing LA Law. I don't know what's coming up after that. We did not meet our goal again of any amount of money, but that's fine. I'm looking at the old clock on the coffee table and it says I got an Amscray. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. And hope you like the show about Bogey. And with all that being said, oh man, thanks to everybody for being here. Zalipa, Rumple Trenchcoat, of course, Chef and his whole crew. The Wolf, of course. Who else do we have in here today? We had Wade Curtis. Thank you for coming in, Wade. Tim Jenkinson from across the pond. Leon Kennedy was here. And Johnny Books, who's driving down the road listening to us. Ellison owns CBS now. Really? A person owns CBS? That was owned by a corporation. Skydance, Paramount, whatever. Anyway. All right, with all that being said, the only thing left to say is till next time, we'll see you next time. We'll see you next time.
Tom Gulley's here. Gulley. spirits are low. So start the show. Time's here to go. So let it